Right, hi everyone on Zoom with me here today. This is another one of my Zoom meetings that we have with the patrons, and anybody who wants to become a patron can have a look in the description below and find out all about it. And I'm going to talk today about the stages of how mediums connect with the spirit world. And in particular, I want to talk about what we call psychometry, because I'm going to be having very shortly online live seances happening, and I've gathered together some of the people from my old circle, and that was a text message just came in as I started this. Actually, I said another one could join me, and I'm going to do a live kind of a spiritualist circle, really, rather than a seance, to be quite honest. It's a development circle. So what I'm going to do is bring the people from Patreon in with me and teach you, so you can become part of it, as a way, so you can get the spirit messages too from myself and my group, which should prove interest. Not every time, but just this will be another sort of special, probably once a month, I expect, to begin with. And I thought today, of our little chat today, I thought I'd tell you about some of the aspects of how we connect with spirit, but in particular about psychometry, because I find this is a really fascinating topic, which you'll see demonstrated later on, not now, but you'll see it demonstrated when we go live with these readings. And also anybody that's capable of being able to post me anything that you don't want returned, that's had your vibration on it, any of you in the patrons, that is, you can post me something that's you might have owned for a while, like an old biro or something metal, preferably. If you get in touch with me through the through my website or through the Patreon, drop me a note. We can use that, possibly the psychometry, either for you or people that you might know. But it must be something that we don't have to return, because that just makes it easy. Okay, so that's one of the things. We can use those objects, and I can do some readings on those to demonstrate psychometry. So let me describe why I talk about psychometry, because when I excuse me, when I teach people, and I've been teaching people I talk for a long time, just doing development groups in circles. And when I teach people to develop their mediumship, I have to take them through a number of stages. First of all, I teach them how to open up their spiritual centers, and how to open up, like, what we call the chakras, so that you become aware with spirit. I'll also teach a new novice about how to meditate, and it's not meditation, it's how to attune yourself with spirit. So it's a kind of passive opening. And then I will teach psychometry, which I'll explain a bit more in detail, because that's what I'm on as the main topic. And then I use a number of creative things, such as looking for pictures and shapes and things to get the imagination working, how to read auras, how to sense auras, how to do advanced clairvoyance, that's clairvoyance in advance of coming to the circle, a bit of remote viewing we normally do, and then also teach them remote clairvoyance. And eventually, when everybody's really getting fully developed, I teach them how to speak and how to give an address. So those are the main things that you'll be seeing developing in the seances when we start doing them online live. And I'm getting them all together at the moment. But one of the things I'll be kicking off with when we start this whole new sort of sessions is psychometry. Now, psychometry is when you basically hold an object that's been owned by someone and read it, get the vibration and understand what is it about this person, what can I sense from this object, not about the object, but about the person. It was developed by a guy called, I wrote his name, but I couldn't remember it, Joseph Rhodes Buchanan in 1842. Okay, got it the way. And it means literally soul measurement. So when we do psychometry, basically what I ask people to do is bring an object to the circle each week. I'm not to see it, and I close my eyes and they put it in a bag. You know, I close my eyes and they stick their object in the bag. Everybody sticks an object in a bag, and we don't know whose is what. And then I pass it round and ask someone to take something out the bag. It might be a watch, or it might be a ring or a bracelet or something, or it might be all sorts of things, photographs sometimes as well. And then we hold the object and start just to talk about what we can feel about the owner of that object. Now, this is how I get people started to develop their clairvoyance. You can try it on people too, because it's really interesting, if you use the technique right, how much information you can tell somebody. Now, when you ask someone, okay, right, now I want you to pull an object out and tell me all about the person that owned this object, most people kind of draw sort of a bit of a blank. You know, they sort of go, oh, I don't know. The reason being because they're using their rational mind all the time, trying to think about it. So I teach people that with this, you've got to have verbal diarrhea. Right? You've got to just whatever colours has got to go, right? So you talk randomly, almost, you know. I tell them to pretend. Sometimes I do different things, pretend how some people are very confident and just start. But I say, you know, pretend you're Doris Stokes, a great medium that used to be, or some great medium, and you'll give yourself that confidence. You just know what you're doing, and it's absolutely right, you know. And you get this almost artificial self-confidence, and then just talk as if you know everything about that person, and you think in your mind you're making it up. You see, your conscious mind keeps thinking, oh, this isn't true, I'm making it up. But the more you kind of just say what comes, it gives you the confidence and courage just to say whatever pops into your head. And that's when you start to get the connection with the unconscious and the subconscious mind through which clairvoyance comes, because you've got to learn to bypass the rational. And this is very difficult, particularly if you're, you know, a normal, intelligent person, or anybody that's had normal education. You're told to think about things and question things and, you know, and rationalize things. But if we throw that whole rational mind out the way, we open ourselves to kind of a real flow of thoughts, a bit like happens in a dream in some ways, where things come to you unexpectedly and you think, how on earth did I know that? So what I say to people is, okay, when you hold an object, you've got to first and foremost give whatever your first impression is, and ignore what the object is too, because someone might give you, say, a star sign of Scorpio necklace or something, and you start giving a reading about a Scorpio. No, don't do that, because they might just like the look of it, or it might have been owned by somebody else, you know, or a manly thing might have been owned by a woman for a long time, and so forth. So don't read the object what it looks like first and foremost, just what it feels like. Usually put it in your hand and just hold it and think. Sometimes you can just put your hands over something. I've had to do that when I've done this in museums for with archaeologists and things. Sometimes if I've done stuff with like police people or something, again, you're not allowed to touch it or something. You have to hold your hands over it. You can still get an impression, and even over a person, you can start to learn to do exactly the same way. So it teaches you to kind of open up your intuitive awareness, that flow of intuition. And when I teach people about this, what I say is, when you hold an object, you want to say, okay, who owned this object? Now, there might be multiple layers of people there. So you have to keep, in a way, you have to keep triggering, and this happens with all types of clairvoyance, including mediumship. You have to keep asking in your mind to be given more information. So later on, when I teach a person to connect with the spirit world, half the problem is people don't push the spirit people around to tell them more information. You used to say, come on, what's your name? Come on, where did you live? Come on, how did you die? You know, and eventually they start popping the information in your head. And it's a bit the same with your own unconscious mind. You have to sort of say, come on, tell me a bit more. So, for example, if you're going to do a reading about an owner of the object, you have to use, first of all, what I call clairsentience, which is like sensing like the personality and character of the person. So the first thing you might say is, what's this person like as a person? And you might give a general thing about, you know, they were a bossy person, or they're a cheery person, or they were a meek person, whatever. Get whatever comes into one's mind, you say it, you know. And then you need to build up that character and start to think about what were their hopes, what were their fears, what things did they want to achieve in life, what things didn't they achieve in life, and things like this. And then eventually you start to ask, okay, now build up a picture of their life. So you say, okay, what's this person like as a child? And you describe their childhood. Was it happy? Was it sad? Did a parent die? Was it an uneventful childhood? Did they carry resentments from their childhood or something? And then gradually go through their life up to the present time until you've kind of built up a whole character of the person, a whole life story of the person. And you get all that just by holding an object. And then you say to the person, the person doesn't answer, you just have to spiel all this off. And then you say, how much did I get right? And then that's when the big reveal comes, because they say, oh, well, actually, not much, or all of it. But actually, most of the time, I found when I do it, because I've got so used to this, I mean, most of it's right. 99%, 85% or so is right, with just one or two things that seem to be wrong. And sometimes if you get confident with it and you just let it come from the mind, you'll get all sorts of unusual things, names and addresses and places they lived and things like this. And it's an incredible sort of gift that really you have to kind of just go with the complete flow of it. You know, it's a matter of learning to surrender to the intuitive ability and put that rational ability out the mind. So we use this sort of psychometry idea as a way to develop the first stages of spiritual connection, because the objective is I spend a large part of the teaching in a circle, teaching people psychometry, and most of the time, before I give them any chance at doing a spirit communication, I teach them to, if you get your psychometry right first, you've then really developed this ability of clairsentience, you know, this ability to sense about a person. Because those same skills can then be applied later on when I teach a person to develop spirit contact, because we're using the same sort of idea, except it's now with a spirit person. You can't do a spirit contact by holding an object. So when you're holding an object and if you want to make a spirit contact, say I've described the grandmother using this, I put the object down because I don't want to get a misinformation about the spirit world by picking it up from an object and its vibration, because the idea is that an object retains the vibration of somebody that's owned it. And it could be more than that. And that's something we could discuss in a minute, perhaps. And so that's one of the things. So you put it down, wipe your hands, and then if you're going to do a spirit link, then you would do it from fresh. And again, you're using the same sort of idea, really, because you're asking the spirit world, what were you like as a personality, and give you that information. You're asking the spirit world, how did you die? Give me an impression of how your passing conditions were, and they give you the information. You might be able to say, you know, can you give me your name? You know, but they might not be able to get that through in the same way, because you're doing it in exactly the same way as you are doing with this psychometry. You're gradually getting the information from the spirit world, and they might be able to pop that into your head as well, and you might just say it. Or sometimes you might get into the flow of it and all sorts of things might pop into your head as you're going. But keeping that discipline that I try to teach people, of keeping to understanding what the character is and the life path of that person, that helps you to keep the thread. And it's exactly the same with mediumship. I mean, a lot of people I teach, sometimes they go off on directions and they don't keep any thread. I say, who's your communicator? You've forgotten who's communicating. You're just giving bits and pieces and the person's confused. So you've got to discipline your unconscious mind to keep connected to the spirit communicator, and also to be able to keep on track, as it were, while you've pushed your rationality out the door, right? So it's a funny balancing act between complete chaos and a lot of control, and that's how basically that's the starting point of how we learn to connect to the spirit world, by learning first psychometry. And like I say, I'm going to be teaching that in a much more serious and practical way, say, when we start these new seance rooms things, because I'm going to sort of go back to basics with the people sat with me. And if any of the patrons can get to Winchester, you're welcome to join me in the circle as a guest, as a one-off that we can practice on, perhaps. And similarly, Jane's also going to do a separate thing she won't be doing it in a circle setting. She's going to, you know, the way we sit in the two chairs, she's going to just have a guest that she gives readings to. So we're going to give one person a reading once a month. We're going to do the circle once a month. And we're going to have a guest once a month and various other things we've got planned in our minds. I hope we can make it all work. But we'll obviously start off with the circle that I know, but I will also bring in occasional guests. So those that are patrons are welcome to join me in the flesh, or also on, we'll have a screen there, I hope, and we'll be able to sort of connect with you. If a spirit message comes through, it might be for someone that's watching, see? So that's the plan, and that's a little bit about psychometry. And I don't know if it's stimulated a few thoughts from you. I see you had a couple of messages coming in as you're talking.
I used to belong to a group on Facebook where they used to post photographs of objects and try and get people to read from photographs. I mean, could you do that? I would have thought you had to hold the actual object, but they seem to want you to do it just from seeing a photograph of the object.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting one. You can read a lot from a photograph, but I'm really quite against it in some respects. I tell you why, because some of the mediums you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at their face. You know, he's a grumpy old sod, or he's a nice person, or he's, you know, you can see in the person's eyes when you look at them just from a photograph what they're about. And so what you're doing from a photograph often is just giving a sort of character reading, and I find that a bit worrying. I mean, there's a few mediums out there that tell people to bring along a photograph, put it in the bowl or whatever they use, and then they read that on stage. And I think this is extremely bad, personally, to do that type of thing, because also they will also know who sent that photograph, because people will write information on the back of it, the name of it, and they'll also know which seat number that person's in because of the ticket numbers. So there's an awful lot of room for cheating going on there. And if you're a medium, once you're developed, you don't need to do that. You don't need to have a photograph.
No.
You don't even need to see the person. I mean, when you do a phone reading, for example, you don't see the person. You got no facial clues, as it were, from a person. You know, if they look surprised or there's a lot people can read in a face. So I'm a bit, I think I worry about that, but I have used them in circles because, like, for example, old-fashioned photographs have been given, but I tell the person, don't look at the face too much, just hold and pick up the vibration of the thing, you know, hold it in your hands. So I think that's quite a good point, Pat, actually, but a question of debate. I see someone wrote a text message there. Is there anything about the ownership or the use of the object that can improve the psychometric reading, such as how much it has been used, adored, how long it was once owned, or how recently, etc.? Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because if you've got something that hasn't been owned much or doesn't have a connection with it much, you're not going to get much off it, are you? I think they say that a metallic object will retain the vibrations better than anything else, and a living object too, because another thing I'll be teaching on those circles is flower reading, because you can give each person, while they're sat in the meditation of the circle, I give a flower to, for example, and because flower is a living thing, it will pick up the vibration of that person really quickly. It sort of immediately absorbs the person's energy, and then you hand that flower to someone else and they read that flower, and that flower can tell you a massive amount about the person. And also the flower itself with its structure can also be read as a sort of an oracle at the same time. So that's another thing that I teach, which is a little bit more of an obscure type of thing you don't see very often, which is quite useful, I think. But certainly how much it's been adored, like they've asked, is also very important. How long they've owned it is important. And also, like I say, sometimes an object might have more than one impression upon it. Because this really is, in many respects, I think, what happens when people go ghost hunting. They're picking up a form of psychometry. They're picking up the vibration of the area, the atmosphere of a place or an object.
Craig, can I ask about buildings? So
yeah,
you can touch a building, not necessarily an item.
Yeah, Laura. I mean, yes, you can, because this happens, like I say, when people like to go ghost hunting and things like that, don't they? Excuse me. You might feel the energy of a place. I mean, you can't go and touch the stones at Stonehenge because they're all roped off. But nearby, there's Avebury Ring, which is, I think, better than Stonehenge, and it's often neglected. And you can touch the stones there, for example. Now, when I touch the stones and open myself up and then touch the stones, you get, in my case, I get in flashes of history and the place and the atmosphere. And I don't know if it's my imagination. I can't prove it, if what it is, but there's definitely a feeling that you can get something by touching an object, and particularly something that's ancient and been worshipped and has that mystery, and it's been in that landscape for so many thousands of years. And also you can do it with when you buy a home, for example. You buy it because it feels right, don't you? It's not always because it's necessarily the perfect place on paper. It's because when you go in, you think, this place feels right, or this place don't feel right. There's been an unhappy place this has been, women particularly, I think, more than men when it comes to buying.
That's so true. Funny.
And probably conflicts too sometimes, I would imagine. Oh, this is just right, why don't you want it? Oh, I don't know, someone's died here, or I don't feel right about that, or there's the people were divorced. And I think, often, I'm sure if you were to search the history, you probably find yourself to be proven right, I'd have thought,
Craig, can I ask, when you just mentioned that when you touch something, you can see things. So I'm presuming you're picking up images when you touch an artifact. Do you hear things as well? Do you see written text as well? What's your experience?
Okay, that's a good question too. I think most psychic people, not all, but most psychic people tend to be very visual thinkers, I think, because we tend to quite often psychic people quite often come from artistic backgrounds, and particularly you'll find a lot of psychic people like doing paintings and things. I noticed Matthew Smith's been putting paintings up on his website. I've noticed that not Matthew, Gordon Smith. I know, and there's another medium called Matthew, so I think he's artistic too. And also, so has Matthew Manning put up pictures that he did. I know that I've used to be an artist for a long time, and I've noticed a lot of psychic people have a visual mind, very visual mind. So I get a lot of visual images, but sometimes you hear things as well. And I think this is where we start to get into the realm of we're all wired differently. We all kind of perceive the world differently. There's what do they call it? Neural linguistic programming plays on this idea quite a lot, that each of us can be either a sensory person or a visual person and so on. And that you can talk to people in their language. If you realize a person's visually functioning, you speak it, I see it. If people tend to hear you say, I hear you, you can manipulate. In sales, they do this. So we're all wired differently, but again, with mediumship, we get a connection on all the senses. So we see, for example, pictures. And if I'm connecting with the spirit world, particularly if I'm in an audience and I'm doing a big crowd and you've got so much energy there that you can really float on it, it jumps for me into what we call clairaudience then. Particularly when I've got a big audience, it's harder when it's less energy, but when there's a lot of energy, I then start hearing the spirit voice in my ear, literally hearing it talking to me, and it's in your mind really, but it can appear to come from the ear. So again, even with the psychometry, we're training ourselves to tune in to external stimuli that are giving us perceptual information. So we may see it, we may hear it, and we may sense it. But it's the sensing, actually. People saying, oh, sensing's not so important because you know, but it's the most important, actually. The clairsentience, we call it, is the string, and the clairaudience, which is the hearing, and the clairvoyance, which is like the seeing, are the pearls. But we need that sensing of being able to say, for example, a person can say, I've got your grandmother here, and they might give a great description of the grandmother, a character, a personality, and things like that, but not given the name, not have seen what she looks like, not have given many visual pictures of things, but can give a lot of information just by sensing the character. And again, this all comes back to these root teachings that I say to people. You must first learn the psychometry before you can move on to begin towards the mediumship. And of course, some people don't get any of it. You know, they might struggle their whole life, and they might find their gifts are different. They might find they can bring out healing gift, or an empathy gift, or you know, a philosophy gift. You know, when we open ourselves to development, who knows what can come through. Silence. Any other thoughts, people, about this or anything? We can open the topic up to other things as well, as of course.
I've got a question. You know, I mean, I'm not connected with mediumship, but I sometimes feel like to tap into something, a channel has to open, and sometimes I can't tell you how it opens. And somehow you can then see a story, get the message, understand what's going on, feel a person, and God knows where it comes from. And the other person is just sort of telling you, that makes sense, that's what's happening. But God knows where it comes from. I don't know how to explain this, you know. Yeah. And I think maybe with mediumship, which is what you're doing, obviously you're a very developed medium, probably like you've done years of it. You're used to this, but you know, I think a channel has to open. If it doesn't open, I don't know. It's like a channel. I can't explain it. It's like a flow of energy of some kind.
Yeah, you've nailed it. Actually, you've actually nailed it there, Elise. I think the thing is, with mediumship, I'm talking about how I teach people how to develop from nothing. You know, but when it actually comes to it, and sometimes when you're doing mediumship or you're doing clairvoyance or you're doing something, to be honest, I've been doing it since I was in my early 20s, taught by Doris Stokes, who started me off and things like this, you know, and things like this. Went down all this path, and I've taught other people. And to be honest, I still don't know how it happens, really, because ultimately we just, like you say, we kind of open ourselves up to something, and I get forever amazed of where on earth did that come from? How on earth did I know that? Like, so I said to someone in a reading the other day, I said, your father fought in a civil war in South America, in Bolivia or something. You know, how on earth do you know things like that? You know,
somehow you kind of know it's right as well. You know, you kind of know that this is it, that when you have this flow with somebody, that you're actually making sense, and it makes sense to you as well as you're talking about this. But I cannot tell you where it comes from.
Absolutely. It's kind of, people say, this is often a common question, how do I distinguish between what's coming from me and what's being given to me by the spirit world? You know, because these are my own imaginations, my own thoughts, you know, particularly when you begin. But then you get to a point, I think, when it just seems to sort of hit you like a frying pan, bang, you know, and you give the fact, and you just know it's right. You just know it's right. And of course, when you've got a sitter who confirms it, you've proven it's right. And sometimes it's almost impossible to know where it comes from. But I think what we do, we start off, and when I teach people, I think they start off, they learn all the techniques. This is what happens in spiritualism. You learn all the techniques. People even go and get certificates and things like that. And they still might not be very good. But it's once you've opened the channel, once you've kind of, and I think that channel is also partly with, I mean, I think it's very much learning to open the spinal column from Kundalini. I think that happens, certainly it does for me, but I think it does for most mediums in a gentle way, not like some light blindingly going up the spine. It just gently opens, and your aura, particularly the top of the head, opens up, and you become aware. I feel a certain change in my thinking too, become very, very sensitive, unguarded, in a way, and vulnerable in a way too when you open up like this, because any thought can pierce you. So if you're with someone that's aggressive, it can be very uncomfortable because it can get right through and you can't fight them off, so there's a super sensitivity you get. And I think we just have to learn to kind of trust it. We just have to trust our feelings. We have to trust what we get and know that it's right, and have the courage and I think modesty to go with it. Because like when you stand up, when you get people say, when we did television a lot, Jane and myself, and they say, well, do you need to do any preparation? Do you need to do any, this, that, and the other? I think, well, no, because we're not like a singer. We can't practice it. We just get up there. And to be honest, we might stand up there and we get absolutely zero. We never know until we actually say our first message, and whether it's taken or not, whether the gift is there or not. Every time you go in completely, it's terrifying. You jump off the diving board, you don't know if there's water at the bottom or not. I mean, every time it's quite a scary act if you're doing it on a big scale, like on the TV when we did Princess Diana seances and things. I mean, terrifying. But spirit usually always actually step in, even at the last minute. And even if and particularly when you're doing a demonstration on a theatre, like I say, it's that you don't know if you got it or not. So that first link you do is often the most important, because if you get something wrong on the first link, and it's not usually got you might go to someone that's awkward or grabbing a message or something like that, and it's not meant for them or something, and you struggle with that first one, it takes you a while to get into that flow when you're doing the mediumship. And that, then when people start to believe in you, you feel them open up. You suddenly feel the whole audience go, you really can do it. Vroom, and then pow, you can come in with all the proper stuff. But it's never an easy path, I think, this mediumship. It's not something that is easy for anybody that does it.
Yeah, I'll just share a little bit. So I read cards, and I do it rarely for people. I feel, I'll develop myself spiritually, and then when the time comes, I'll do this, when the time comes, if the time comes, when the door opens. But I know I can do it. But it's not the book. It's not the cards. It's not what I read in the book. It tells its own story. It's beyond the book. It's beyond that. There is a flow to it. The reading about the cards, the history of the cards, the different versions of the cards all help, because it gives you some kind of understanding of what it is. But it has its own story, it has its own flow, its own thing, its own connection with the energy. I would almost say like it's sort of just a side thing, a tool. That's it. But there's a channel that opens from it, right? So that's sort of my experience that I'm just sharing.
Yeah, it is a trick you can try, Elise. Try this one when you give a reading to someone and you're practicing. Do a reading with the tarot cards, right? But do them all face down, right? Do the whole reading with the cards face down. You can touch them, but you can't read what's on the other side of the card. Do the reading, give them the whole reading, and then when the reading's finished, turn the cards over and see if they correspond to what you said. It's another one I throw on my poor students, but it is remarkable, because you think, my God, that was right. That card, the traditional meaning for that card does fit with what I've just told them. And that way, you realize that you're getting it from your intuition, because the cards themselves are just
side thing
pointers, aren't they?
Yeah, side thing. I don't know how else to say it. When you're in the flow, it's not the cards anymore. It's got its own thing.
Yeah. I use the cards when I'm doing sort of email readings and things sometimes, because they're useful just to have something to push my unconscious to. But I sometimes put some cards out for someone I'm about to do a reading, like on the phone. I do the reading on the phone, I've forgotten about the cards, and I've walked off into another room to come back and look at them afterwards and think, oh, blimey, it's all there. I didn't realize, so they're useful, but I don't think card reading, when a tarot reader that hasn't got the gift and just reads the meanings of the cards, I've seen dreadful professional readers sort of say, the first card is the Ace of Cups, that means something good's coming into your life. You're going to have a new relationship of some sort. The next card, oh, it's crossed by the Ten of Swords. Oh, there's a relationship you just broken from. Oh, and you think, and they don't give anybody a chance to even respond or answer or say it was right or wrong. I mean, that's dreadful. And they're professionals and been doing it all their life. Now, you need what you're doing, Elise. You're doing it the right way. And that is to...
But I'll tell you, when I was younger, I think, it's always been imaginative, creative sort of person. But I wouldn't call myself spiritual. It's taken years, and then some kind of spiritual realization, awakening, and then gradually a lot of spiritual work. And then I would say karma clearing, peeling off the layers of dirt, if you want to put it that way. And then slowly kind of revealing sort of where you are and how this is all going. It's sort of, that's how it went, but it's not without its suffering, and all of those things, but kind of just how it flows and developed,
I don't think any spiritual person would call themselves spiritual, actually. I mean, most spiritual people would probably call themselves, I don't know, ruined or something, because it's a tough path, isn't it?
And I think if you're a good person, right, and you have this side of you, no matter how developed it is, I mean, I always see people who are not good around me, and I feel them. And I have to deal with them. I have to find strategies and ways to cope with people like this. Maybe someone who isn't so intuitive, these people will pass you by, won't get affected by them. Maybe you are like them, so this is part of your world. But if you're a good person trying to do good things in the world, you just look at people and you think, oh my goodness, how do I cope with this? Help me. Do I need to sit like away because I can feel your energy? This isn't so good. I'm next to you, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, when you open up your spiritual sensitivity, you start to see what people are really like a lot of the time.
Exactly.
It's like that gut feeling is there with everybody.
And it's not sometimes a gut feeling, it's actually seeing. And it's horrible when you see it, I'm like you pointed out before, right, Craig? I've got the spiritual side and I've got the other side, which is the real world practical side. I see all sorts of people in that world, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I know. It's a awful world out there when you look at people, what they're really like. But I think it's a bit like everybody's at a different level of development. We're all like flowers in a lotus pond. Some are beginning to bud, some are just beginning to open, and some are completely open. And in a way, it's quite nice to try to speak to the ones that are open, because you can't get anywhere with the ones that are closed.
Refreshing. That's why I love these sessions. I get to meet Sheila and Pat and all their lovely thoughts and their goodness and everything. It's so nice.
That's mutual. That's mutual.
And it's a world away from the one I just got off, which is madness sometimes.
And also 100,000 followers actually enjoy watching you as well, guys.
Fabulous. That's such good news. Can I ask a question, Craig? Yeah. In the light of the fact that I'm always praising you,
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. You can come every week. Yeah.
You gave me a fabulous reading previously. How you knew it, I don't know. And you were just talking a few minutes ago about how you would give a call, a reading, it would be on the phone. So aside from the fabulous reading and the accuracy, more to the point, I mean, he couldn't have possibly known. There was no way he could have known. It was about my son who wants to study medicine, and he kicked off the reading with that. And there's no way he could have known, because my son changed his mind quite late. So that's what the reason is. But what I wanted to say was, in the light of what you've just said, that's not psychometry. You're not touching anything. You're just hearing my voice. How on earth are you able to pick up so much from the vibration of my voice, or what I didn't say anything. I didn't say a thing. How does it work?
Well, two things I think I pick up there. One, it comes from the spirit world, because the spirit world are telling me things in my mind. So, I don't need to be connected to your vibration for that to happen. So that's the spirit world to give me the information, say, tell her this, tell her that, tell her that, tell her that, you know. And if I'm in a good flow, I'm not always in that flow. I can't do it like if I'm doing email readings. I can't do it. Well, sometimes it comes through that way, but I've got no confirmation, so I dare not follow that route really. But you do sometimes, despite it, because something's pushed upon you. But it comes from the spirit world. So that's what I'm getting, telepathy with the spirit world. But then there's another interesting point that I think you kind of think that makes me puzzle, because when we do this psychometry, am I getting that information just from the object, or do I connect to that object and then do I somehow connect to something bigger, like the internet, you know? So that object is like my little monitor or my phone or my computer, and somehow it connects into the universal mind, because that's kind of what I think starts to happen. You start off by giving a psychometry reading to someone, and it's easy for us to conceive of the idea that there's a vibration on the object there. But maybe I also, and I think this is what happens when we, like Elise was saying, when we kind of don't know where it comes from, we connect to something. I think we connect onto that kind of, I suppose you just, I call it, in one of my books, I call it the mycelium, like the mushrooms have a mycelium of interconnections and everything connects to everything else. I think it's the same way with psychic work. I connect in, and somehow I've now got access to what could be the Akashic, they could call it as well. You could call it the Akashic record as well. Somehow I've got access to every single bit of information, just like the internet kind of explains it in a way. It's a bit like a spiritual internet. And once you're connected, once you're on the internet, once you've got a good connection, you can get any amount of information. And I think the same thing happens, but you need a good phone, or you need a good connection in order to make it work. And I think that's where the mediumship has to learn. The medium has to learn that it's not coming from my personal skills. I am just a channel for lots of information, and if that information is brilliant or that information is dumb, it doesn't matter, because it's coming, that's what I'm given, you know. And if I'm a good channel, then it'll come clear, and if I'm in a good state at that particular time, it will come clear, because sometimes you're not always open. Sometimes you have moments when your brain is clear and fresh and it comes easily. Other times you're tired out and it won't come no matter how much you try, or it comes faintly. So, you know, there's a lot of factors involved. And if the person sat in front of you was receiving the message, is also ready for it, karmically ready for it, I think too, because I think there's a lot of karma that comes into this type of thing too, like with the nadis, you know. We were trying to find one man's nadi and no way could we find it, and the nadi reader said to me, yes, karma's not good enough, you know, his karma's not good. And I thought, well, actually that's a good excuse, but at the same time it's true. I think if your karma's not quite right, you won't receive the message. And like I've seen this sometimes when people put really horrible negative comments on the site, and I think, yeah, it's only because you're not ready for this, you know. You're still stuck in that materialistic world. I don't know, what do you think, guys? Yeah.
Craig, do you feel sometimes as if the tools that we use, like the I Ching and the cards, it's almost as if they have their own consciousness, and you know, you get something perhaps from the I Ching and you think, how did it know I wanted an answer to that? How did it know that was what I wanted to hear? You know.
Yeah, I know. I find that absolutely amazing. I cast the I Ching today for something for myself, and it gave me such an exact answer. And I thought, how does it know? It's like a personal
How does it work? It's almost like it's got its own consciousness.
Yeah, it does.
It's connecting with you. It's weird.
Yeah, and
Strange.
the nadi's the same. It's like I don't know how we can ever explain that. Actually, I don't know how we can ever explain. Every time I think the more you work with it, because I've been working with the I Ching since I was 14 years old. So, and I've been using it, particularly when I start doing my readings again, using it. I've been using it all the time, nearly a daily, you know. And I know parts, and I know loads of it off by heart. But every time I look at it and read it, it reads differently, because the way it's the question that's been asked, and something that I might have thought I knew that off by heart, and I think, no, that's a completely different slant on that. And it's like fluid. It is like talking to a great sage. And I think people, the same thing can happen with the cards and things like that. Okay, Carl Jung explained it as an idea of being like synchronicity, you know, that there's like this no such thing as coincidence, that everything happens according to the conditions of the time. Or from the I Ching's point of view, it's the unfolding of the Tao, it's the unfolding of the way, or from an Indian point of view, we could call it as the Dharma that's revealing itself through it. So all of these things can explain it, but it is miraculous, like you say, Pat. It's miraculous when you start to make a real connection with your oracle, whichever one it might be, and you find that if the person's open, if I'm open or the person's open, you'll get 100% answer. And sometimes I've had other people and it just gives me the hexagram youthful folly. You can't answer this person's question using the I Ching, you know.
Yeah. No, Greg, sometimes I think, I don't know if you get this, but I think you must do. Sometimes there is just a certain message you have to give somebody. For some reason, there's a certain message that has to go to somebody, and they can be asking a million questions, but you kind of know it's all a side issue, that there is just this one answer to one thing, maybe. I mean, there's so many different, I guess, flavors or colors to readings that you must have. But I do remember there was this one person who really wanted a reading. I gave one. He was asking about 5 or 6 different questions, but actually there was just one message. And it was just the one message, and I just gave him that message. I said, at the end of the day, whatever the answers I've given you, this is what you've got to do, right? And if you do this, even if it takes 2 or 3 years, you will be okay. Just do this. You know?
Yeah. Sometimes, and the Ching and things do this too, don't they? You ask it one thing and it tells you, actually, that's not the problem. This is the problem, you know. And you think, actually, yeah, that's the essence of it. And there's also, I find it remarkable the way the spirit world work too, because you know, you give someone a spirit message, and then they go on and they give that message to someone else. And so they go and tell someone, and they don't know anything about it. You say, go and ask, your mother knows about this, go and tell her so and so, so and so, so and so, so and so. And they go and tell her that, and they don't know. Say the daughter gets the message and passes it to the mother, but doesn't know that the mother knew that. Then how could it ever be explained, for example, as being telepathy or something? You know, because there's no way anybody could have known those facts. And it can be life-changing for people sometimes. It can be absolutely life-changing messages that can come through inadvertently, by accident, out of the blue like that. Yeah, I think if a message is meant to get through, sometimes it does.
I do actually hope that I'll get to see you in Winchester or Jane.
I hope so.
I never had a mediumistic reading in this tradition, in this way. And I would love to connect with my grandmother.
Yeah, well, I will be good. I am going to start doing them again. I was doing them by phone, but I find them so tiring that I've had to stop for a while. I've stopped for quite a few months actually, and all my regular clients have got really upset. It's like, oh wait, come on, Craig. But I'm thinking of going back, and Domenico's building me a new website, so and it's nearly ready to go. And I'm going to start doing them by Zoom, because I think that would be a little bit more relaxed a way of doing it. So I'll be starting doing those again soon.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I find them so tiring nowadays, you know.
Yeah,
I see we got a couple of our questions there also coming
Yeah,
on
we
the chat,
do.
so those that can't get in by visually. I don't get anything if my emotions are high for whatever reason, such as grief. So sorry to have to go back to work with you. So much for the invite. Hope everyone has a good day. Okay, because they just left. Well, you can watch the video again, hopefully later on. That's from Laura again there. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Sometimes the emotions get in the way, I think. Both if the medium, you know, I can't work if I've got a problem, too many problems around me. I need clarity. And I think sometimes grief gets in the way. You know, when a person comes for a mediumistic reading, sometimes if the person has very, very high level of grief, the spirit can't get through, because that's got to be settled first. And I think sometimes the emotions can also get in the way sometimes, in that they will, if a person has in their mind that they have a thought that is so powerful in their mind that it must be this way, it must be this way, it must be this way, the medium can't get past it, or the psychic, because they kind of almost put that up as a barrier and will push it into your head, and will push it into a weaker psychic might get that pushed into their head and give them confirmation of something that's not true, because that has become almost like a mind form that they've pushed upon a person. So emotions are a very odd thing when it comes to clairvoyance, because they can have a very powerful sort of projective effect, and can also project into the medium's mind and mislead him or her, you know. But just to answer that question, it was just put in on chat there, so couldn't get, because Laura couldn't get through there. Yeah, so that's some quite interesting thoughts, I think, there. Yeah, coming close to the end now. So I've got any other last thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, Craig, I just want to say it's so nice to just join these patron calls. You know, I've only been on a few, but hey, I don't get to talk about this to people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I can actually talk to an experienced medium who's kind of gone his own path and further down the path, and is, you know, much older than me, and I get to talk about this, which is really good, you know.
Yeah, it's nothing like having spiritual friends. So generally, I mean, I think all of us that have been connecting on here, it's a weird thing. I've met Sheila in real life, but most of you I've not met in real life, and yet we all kind of really know each other well, you know. And it's a strange thing, because and I think it happens even when you get even if you get something like a YouTube channel, everybody starts to connect. And this is like, you know, I'm going to do this circle thing like I talked about when I started to talk about the psychometry, and the people in the circle that join me in real life, we've had a really deep connection in our time. And I think anybody that joins the circles becomes very, very powerfully connected on a spiritual way. So I'm going to be very, very interested how these things start to develop in the time ahead, in the years ahead, because to be able to bring it all online now is an amazing thing, you know.
And I love the fact that everybody here wants to be a good person, and is kind of a good person, you know. It's so nice. You know what I mean? They're all here because they want the world to be a better place and all of that. That's so lovely.
Yeah, and of course this is all patron stuff, so I'm doing it for nothing too. So I think it's nice that it's all just done just for its own sake, and we know that, you know, all that money you helped with to make it possible is going to be able to go out and help the world in different ways. Hopefully get our centre soon and things like that, you know, and do some good work for the world.
For me, Craig, particularly, I mean, everybody has their own perspective, but we have lived and are living in such troubled times. It's been wonderful to connect with positive people and to get guidance from you and Jane. I literally couldn't sleep last week when 2 weeks ago when the war broke out. I just kept thinking about these poor people. I couldn't sleep. I had to calm myself down. It was 3 a.m, and I'm not that kind of a person, you know. But through Jane's channel, through your own, it gave me guidance. It gave me this perspective that, okay, we have to go through this in order for something good. It gives you hope, really.
Yeah, I think if you start to see the world on a spiritual perspective, it makes a difference for everybody, for us too, you know.
I had an experience. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Yeah.
Hi. Just to end the session, my experience was a friend was moving house, loved the house that she was going to move into, and said to me, took off her necklace and said, I'd like you to check if this is the house for me and to dowse. And I said, I don't do dowsing. I haven't got a clue. She said, no, I just know you're going to know that. Please let me know. So I went off into another room, and all I did was got the chain back and forward. I thought, I can't do this. And then I just went quiet in my mind. And all of a sudden, I got no. And I think I heard it in my mind, definitely. And I didn't know what to do. And I thought, oh, this is too much responsibility. She really wants this house. I went up to her and I thought, I'll say nothing. She says, I know you know the answer. I can see it in your face. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, it's no. And all of a sudden, it's just like a tunnel. As if I had blinkers on to the world. And I was on this tunnel of verbally telling her that this house was not the house, but there was a house just down the road, and it was on a hill, and there was a bus stop near the house, and that's the house you need to go into. I could see it in my mind's eye, and I said, my other mind or whatever was saying, why are you saying all this? But I just knew it was true. I said, this is the house. And she looked at me and said, I viewed that house yesterday, the bus stop and everything else, but I wasn't sure. And that, I just couldn't believe it.
Amazing. That's so dramatic and amazing. Are you psychic yourself? Are you psychic?
Mediumistic. I do therapy work, and just as one of the patrons said, if somebody needs something, it just flows, and I don't know where it comes from. I don't question. I just go, and they say, "Oh my God, how did you know that?" Whatever. But I'm not trained. It's just through. I'm a reflexologist, so I do sort of healing.
What you've been getting there is spontaneous psychic things. This is what quite often happens. So you start to get these spontaneous experiences, and they're kind of a bit shocking for you at first when they first happen.
I think I've always had them, so I'm so used to them. They come in. It's so natural. And from an Irish background, we're brought up with a lot of spirits around and everything else. So I think we just tune in naturally without even realizing it. And like I will get a thought if I'm working and I thought, oh, that person might want it, and I get a real pull to go and see someone. And then I go and do my therapy. I open the door and say, would you like a treatment? And they went, oh my goodness, it couldn't come at a better time. I'm so anxious. And I went, thank you.
Well, that'll help you with your reflexology, I'm sure, and any form of kind of healing things. I know that we've got a lot of Irish friends. We went and did a show over in Ireland once with Gay Burns was the guy. Someone was on the used to run a show over there, and it was fantastic. I remember the taxi driver picked us up, and he said, "You and Jane will love it over here. You will. It's full of gullible people." I thought I were a typical Irishman, it's funny. But anyway, I thank you all guys for joining us. I'm going to finish now, actually, because we're coming to the end. So I'm just going to sort of say goodbye to everybody on this channel there and say thanks for joining us. If you would like to become a patron, there's a link in the description below, and you can come and join us on Zoom. And don't forget what I was saying earlier on. We are looking for people to come and join us in Winchester to join in with the sessions on the Seance Room and some of the Jane reading things. And so get in touch with me if you want that through the website, and send me an email through the website and explain what you would like to, that you've watched this and so forth. And so, become a patron, have a look at the link below, give us a thumbs up, and hopefully see you soon. Bye for now, folks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Craig. Bye, everybody.
Bye.